Hello, my astrology friends. Welcome to this channel. I hope you enjoy this upcoming YouTube video where we're going to spend some time looking at this upcoming full moon for April. I know that a lot of you have certainly experienced some greatness at the timing of the solar eclipse. A lot of you have commented on my Facebook page, Holly Pool Astrology Facebook page, about how the eclipse had affected you. And so I also know that there were a lot of people who were kind of feeling a bit let down. But before I go there, let me introduce myself if this is your first time on this channel. My name is Holly Pool. I'm a professional astrologer and a health theologist. And so I combine a lot of very different energies to work directly connected within the chart. I do a lot of personal readings. I do a lot of soul coaching. I write every day on Facebook. So I invite everybody to come to Holly Pool Astrology Facebook page and see where I talk about the energies. I wanted to talk for a moment. Let me share the screen, though, because there's some things within the screen. So this is where we are right now. I'm doing this on the 13th of April. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that a lot of people felt that they were very much let down from the eclipse. They were just, I guess, expecting some major, massive situation and dynamic to happen directly in their life. That makes me feel very sad when people feel that they have been let down, because nobody was actually let down. The earth felt the vibration. People who consider themselves sensitives, for instance, to the energy vibration, also felt the vibration. Some people probably wanted to see something greater with their eyes. I'm in Nova Scotia, and we were not in the 100% path of totality. But when it happened, I actually sat by my window with the sun as it went by my window during the eclipse. And I closed my eyes and I actually welcomed in whatever was best for my highest good. Now, the eclipse took place at 19 degrees Aries. And no, I'm sure a lot of you are feeling, Holly, I am so over the eclipse energy. I get it. I understand. But the vibrations that we're still feeling right now is actually coming from that ecliptic energy. Because the eclipse lasted for 4 minutes, 40 seconds in its totality, the strength of that eclipse will be so massively strong for 4 months. I have seen the energies last for even up to 2 years. If you were able to see my board here on my wall, I keep track of all eclipse for a minimum of 2 years, where they were vibrationally, what they held. And one of the things I wanted to talk about for a second is that Chiron is still very strongly sitting in that energy. So when an eclipse happens, and I talked a lot about this in my solar eclipse video, which I had just done, I talk about the fact that the eclipse sets up a vibrational energy. I feel like I'm out on the tarmac pulling in a plane, with the lights. But it sets up a vibrational energy in the sky. And so on the day of the eclipse, very seldom there's anything that happens. But Because it sets up that vibrational energy. It's when the planets or fixed stars, well, they're fixed. So when the planets or the asteroids or go through, it's when that is highly, highly vibrating. Chiron sat right in the middle of that eclipse. So Chiron is very, 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 very much highlighted right now. And Chiron is asking you and me and everybody around you, where is your wounding? Because that's what Chiron looks at. Where is your wounding? And interestingly enough, you want to pay attention to your nighttime dreams. Perhaps some of your dreams will remind you where that wounding may have taken place. We've all gone through wounding. There is nobody, and I'd be willing to say that, there is nobody that hasn't experienced wounding of some kind. Some people, certainly more than others, but nobody has escaped it. In evolutionary astrology, it's all about the growing of the soul, the evolving of the actual soul. And in order to evolve, we have to learn. In order to learn, we're a really dumb bunch, us humans. And I hear people laughing at that. But we're a really dumb bunch because we don't learn when things are going tiddly boo, things are going along really, really, really well. We don't learn. We don't get it. So quite often we have to be kind of slammed up against a wall in order for us to go, wow, and decide to actually be able to do something about it. So Chiron, and I want you to sit. If you're watching this video, please put it on pause for just right now and take a moment. And what I want you to think about is, where have I felt the wounding through life? And have I dealt with it? Chiron is so strong in a chart. And if Chiron, so you're looking for this symbol, okay, with the 0, in your personal chart, where is it? Where does that show up in your chart? And if it's in a fire sign, so that's Aries and Leo and Sagittarius, if your personal Chiron is in a fire sign, maybe you just went on through it and says, I'll deal with that later. I'll deal with that later. Yeah, maybe sometime down the road, I'll deal with that. If your Chiron is in a water sign, so Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, it says, I don't want to deal with the emotions. I don't want to deal with the emotions. Don't make me deal with the emotions. Let me just bump right over that. And what happens in that scenario, I grew up again in Newfoundland because most of you have heard me talk about that. And I have learned certainly the whole fact of either pay me now or pay me later is where it comes in. And when we have that Chiron in a water sign and we choose not to deal with it due to the emotional, vibrational feel, then we just kind of run right over it and act like it perhaps hasn't even happened. If it's in your air, if it's in an air sign, so that's Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, if your Chiron is in one of those, then you've spent a lot of time perhaps thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it a bit more. But have you actually really dealt with it and worked with it? If it's in an earth signs being Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, if it's in either one of those, maybe you've looked at it and gone, that happened years ago. Practically, is that maybe where that comes in? And Chiron brings up a whole lot of things. So Chiron brings up our fears. Chiron brings up our fear of commitment. Chiron brings up our fear of trust. Chiron brings up our fear of non-acceptance. Chiron brings up our fear of not good enough. So, as I said, make sure you put your video here on pause for a moment and give a bit of thought to that. As most of you know, I do soul coaching. And when I do that, we spend a lot of time on our personal Chiron. Why? Because Chiron is our Achilles heel in our chart. And I know a lot of psychologists who work with astrology, and they work very tightly with Chiron. Once we get our Chiron, once we work through our Chiron, first of all, we've got to figure out what the wounding is. Secondly, we got to figure out how are we feeling that wounding. And thirdly, then, last and final thing is how are we going to deal with it? Because going boom, 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 boom right over it doesn't work. Again, pay me now or pay me later. So coming back to that ecliptic energy, and yeah, I know I'm not staying on that ecliptic energy, but that's where Chiron is right now. So if your nighttime dreams is actually even bringing you back in time, sometimes our nighttime dreams can bring us back to our childhood, can bring us back to our teenage years. Maybe even it brings you to today's world, but there may be some people from the past that seems to have infiltrated in today's world. Let me give you an example. Maybe in today's world, you may have a dream about your work today, but maybe your mother or your father shows up in your work today and is telling you, you can't do that. You're not smart enough to do that. That dream is your subconscious. The subconscious comes up and the subconscious says, what is it you're dealing with? That represents a wounding. It represents a wounding that actually came from your childhood. And now there is somebody in your work world that is reminding you of that wounding. We are all being reminded of that wounding. Chiron is saying, let's deal with it. I gave the full mythological story of Chiron in that solar eclipse video where I actually talked about Chiron found an answer. Chiron shot himself in the foot. How many of us have shot ourselves in the foot over the years? Shot himself in the foot, but he fixed it. And so the universe is saying, Chiron in Aries. Aries is that first sign of the zodiac, first one out of the gate, the head of the pack. How are you fixing? And we can't always do it alone. Sometimes we have to have people around us who are actually very not connected emotionally to our emotional story. The other thing that I'm watching very clearly here is the nodal axis. And in evolutionary astrology, the nodal axis in our natal chart shows our purpose in life. Over the last 3 or 4 days, we have had a planet in the bendings. What is that? That is, and it wasn't a planet, it was an asteroid. This asteroid Ceres, I can draw a line from Ceres. See if I can get my drawing tool down here. No, it's not going to want to come down. Created a square with the north node and created a square with the south node. In astrology, that says it's in the bendings. It's sort of caught in the crosshairs. And Ceres is about claiming what is rightfully mine. And we've really not, over the last 2 or 3 days, it's been very difficult for us to claim what is rightfully mine. Now we're coming in, Ceres is moving her way along, coming out of the bendings. Now we're going to feel things differently. And perhaps for people who said, I didn't really get anything out of the eclipse, that was a big letdown for me. Maybe Ceres is very strong in your chart, saying, no, the time is not quite just right now. It's coming into play, but not quite yet. So I'm going to come back to the discussion of the eclipse again for a second. Mercury. We've got Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde happening up here in the heavens. What house in your chart is Mercury going through? So you're going to want to look on your whole outside rim. You're looking for the sign of Aries. That's where there is a high probability of a miscommunication. Now, Mercury had gone all the way up to 27 degrees Aries. So it went 25, 26, 27 degrees Aries. It hit 27 degrees Aries on the 1st of April. Now it's got to back up. So it's 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. As I do this today on the 13th of April is where I'm filming this. It's presently at 21 degrees, but it's going to go back. It's going to run into Chiron, which is exactly where that vibrational energy is. So let's go back for a moment. When did Mercury originally go through that vibrational energy? That was the later part of March when Mercury went through. Some of the conversations that actually came about at that particular point in time, now Mercury is coming back to revisit it on the 25th of April, which we'll get there. Mercury is then going to make its way forward again. So there are 3 types of that conversation. So let's say your Mercury retrograde, let's say you do have Aries up here in the 10th house, our 10th house, our house of our career world. So how could that run out? Well, it could be someone could have come to you later part of March and said, oh, you know, when Sally goes on pregnancy leave, I think it's highly likely that then we'll have you sitting in her chair. Mercury goes on. Then Mercury hits a wall. Mercury is coming back. Your boss comes to you and says, you know, seems like there might be a bit of a problem with her pregnancy. So maybe she's not going to go off in June. Maybe she's actually going to go off a little sooner than that. So we want you kind of a little bit on alert because there's a high probability that that's when that's going to happen. Mercury goes direct again on the 25th of April. That's when the boss will then, after that, a few days after that, come to you and go, well, I guess we have a definite date now. We have a definite plan in place. So that's how that Mercury retrograde can show up. Again, depending entirely what house in your chart it falls in. If it's in the 4th house, it's all about family stuff, family communications, family conversations. If it's in the 8th house, that's often about other people's monies, can be hubby's monies, can be inheritance monies, things of that nature. The other thing we're really watching is, again, I'm on the 13th of April. Jupiter sits at 20 degrees Taurus. Uranus sits at 21 degrees Taurus. Jupiter is our planet of expansion. Jupiter is our planet of good luck. Jupiter is our planet of greatness, you know? Uranus is the planet of unexpected events. Now, Jupiter and Uranus kind of run into each other roughly every 13 months. That's roughly how long it takes for them, because Jupiter takes roughly 12 years to make it all the way around, and, you know, Uranus moves slowly along, so it's usually about 13 months. However, you know, the last time Jupiter and Uranus were in the sign of Taurus was roughly 82, 83 years ago. We're looking at the spring of 1941. And yep, that's where we entered into war, that December. Now, do I believe that this is heading us into war? No, I don't necessarily think that, because a lot of the other planets are not lining up. Pluto right now up in the sky is at 2 degrees Aquarius. In 1941, Pluto was in Leo, directly across from where it is in the sky right now. Jupiter also left and went into Gemini, which we are going to see in late May, June. But, you know, this is really affecting everybody who is a fixed sign. So those are Taurus, those are Leo, those are Scorpio and Aquarius people, especially those signs that have planets in the later degree of that sign. Jupiter is going to run into Uranus, and we'll see when this happens shortly. On the 14th, we also have the moon. Now, when we get to the 15th of April, the moon will actually be rather in an interesting perspective, because the moon now is creating emotional connections. In astrology, we call this a sextile. We like sextiles. Sextiles are good. The moon in Cancer is having a lot of discussions, and I'm really thinking this is a lot of financial discussions. It also wouldn't be surprising to me if somehow, perhaps the government may also be suggesting to the farmers, Taurus is a farming industry, it's the banking industry, about the fact that maybe there is more money that is being available and coming directly to the farming industry. There is definitely conversations of money and finances that is working its way through, because also I can draw a line here. This is Ceres. Ceres is about claiming what is rightfully ours. And that creates a trine. We like trine. Trines are good. So claiming what is rightfully ours, it's highly likely that this is again connected to the farming industry, especially Canadian farming industry, and perhaps money being given, perhaps to the farmers for new equipment or something of that nature. It certainly has Taurus, the farming, the financial banks. It also has to do with land too. So is the government going to look to process land claims differently? Are they going to somehow or other option to sell out lands to people who perhaps want to do farming? So there's all of those types of possibilities that certainly is coming along. You see, Mercury right now is directly in that path of the eclipse. Remember, that solar eclipse was about blowing open doors. I suspect this is a huge door that is opening for the farming industry. Pluto is pretty much stationed. Pluto's like, Pluto's going to start to retrograde on the 1st of May. So Pluto says, I've done a fair amount of disruption. I've done a fair amount of digging underneath and, playing my part greatly. So let's see where society kind of settles itself out once Pluto starts to retrograde on that 1st of May. I will also say, as somebody who has their sun sign right at 2 degrees Aquarius, all of our fixed sign friends, so people born Taurus, born around that 20th of April, our Leo friends, born around that 22nd, 23rd of July, our Scorpio friends, born around that 23, 24, 25 time period, and our Aquarius friends, born that January 20, 21, 22 period, we'll also all breathe a bit of a sigh of relief here because Pluto has been on it and on it and on it and on it. Once it turned direct in October of last year, Pluto has been pounding us, forcing focus, feeling that sense of focus. We've all felt a sense of being driven, but those particular signs, very much so. As we go to the next day, the 16th of April, now, of course, we have the moon opposing Pluto. And the moon opposing Pluto is going to feel like a bit of a tug of war. That's going to feel the universe is saying, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. You have to let it go. Pluto. Moon in Leo goes, oh, but I love it. I love them. As a mother, I should be doing that. As a grandmother, I should be doing this. As a father, I should be doing this. Okay. Think about that. Really think about that. As I said to a client the other day, I listen very intently to clients, especially when I'm doing readings. And if they say, I should go buy a new car, I should paint my house, I stop them and I go, who is shoulding on you? Whose voice is that? Is it mom's voice? Is it dad's voice? Is it grandma's voice? Whose voice is it? Way back in the early 80s, I ran a lot of book clubs, spirituality book clubs. And I had everyone make up a sign, and I invite each one of you to do the same thing. Make up a sign and put it on their computer that says, I will not should on myself today. Because again, we're mid-April. Chiron is still there. Chiron is still sitting there. Mercury is still at 19 degrees. Mercury, remember, though, can be a lot of miscommunication. So also rethink about what you're actually saying. This morning, I was writing a text, and then I thought, no, I won't say that. And I deleted that text because I thought that can be really misconstrued as to what I am actually saying. So no, I won't do that. Then we get to the 17th of April, and now we've got Mars and Ceres. Mars and Ceres is in a sextile. Again, we like sextiles. But Mars and Black Moon Lilith are opposing each other. And sometimes this can be where our shame is brought forth. Black Moon Lilith is all about our shame and where in our life we may feel a bit of a sense of shame. Now, on that exact same day, the 17th of April, we've got Jupiter and Uranus at the exact degree. Let me tell you, on the world stage, that's going to stay in that same degree for 2 to 3 days. We'll watch it. I guarantee you, I said on the eclipse, not much happens on the day of the eclipse. We wait. But when we see Jupiter and Uranus come together at the same degree, they're not quite at the same minute right there, but at the same degree, watch your news. There is a situation that will definitely arise. And I think I said in the other video, with Jupiter and Uranus at 21 degrees, trining Black Moon Lilith and Ceres, somebody here ends up with egg on their face. And I suspect it's the grocery industry. It may also be the banking industry as well. Mark my words. I love this with regards to how the vibration up there creates the shifting and the changing of the vibration here on the earth plane. And one of the things I watch quite often, as I said at the beginning there, I watch the Nodal Axis. One of the big questions, one of the regular questions that I get when people come to me for readings, one of the regular questions is, what is my purpose in life? And I think people expect like a one-line answer. What is my purpose? You know, a one-line answer. Come to be a history teacher. That's not always what our purpose is. And our purpose is very strongly written in our chart, not a question about that. But I also think too that one of the other purposes in our life is to evolve the soul. And that comes from an evolutionary astrology kind of mindset. Evolve the soul to become better people. So that means me always working on me. And part of what I'm supposed to be working on right now is the same as what you're working on right now. And that is about relationships, absolute relationships. The nodal axis right now is going through Aries and Libra. That is me versus them. Now, that is not me against them, but it's me versus them. How am I when I'm by myself? How am I when I'm with them? How can we create a community? How can we be, each of us in this group, be our own authentic self? Authenticity is a number one key in evolutionary astrology. And when we are there on the day of the 18th of April, we've got Mercury retrograde on one side of it. We've got Venus on the other side. We've got the nodal axis right in the middle. See, we got Mercury at 17. We've got the nodal at 15. We've got Venus at 16. Well, actually, it's not in the middle, is it? But we're all sort of together there. Visually, that's what it looks like, but it's not entirely correct that way. But what it is we're all kind of a little huddle right here. Mercury, Venus, let's have a discussion. Let's have a discussion what I bring to this party. I don't mean party. I mean what I bring to this relationship. What you bring to this relationship, what you bring to this relationship, what you bring to this relationship, what you bring to this relationship. We all have gifts to bring. We all do. You can see I'm at the 18th. Jupiter and Uranus is still at that 21 degrees. Black Moon Lilith is still at that 21 degrees. Even on the 19th, when Black Moon Lilith moves to 22 degrees, that's only a 1 degree orb. Now, we still haven't got a 100% exactness. We're both at the 21 degrees. Jupiter is still 29 minutes. Uranus is 45 minutes. So there is definitely, mark your calendars, we are definitely seeing some major events happening. Now we get to the 20th. Now we have Jupiter 43 minutes, 21 degrees Taurus, 43 minutes. Uranus, 21 degrees Taurus, 48 minutes. So we're about 5 minutes of arc here. And the sun has now just moved into the sign of Taurus. So we say happy birthday to our Taurus friends. It is creating a square. We don't like squares very well. It is creating a square with Pluto. Pluto is that planet of endings to make new beginnings. So there's some really big decision-making time for our Taurus friends. Now we actually have Venus. Venus has stepped into that ecliptic energy. And now the universe is saying to you, what is it that you love? What is it that you want to create? What is it that you want to make? And on my Facebook page the other day, I was saying, the universe is asking you, how can you level up? How can you step up? So let me give you an example. If you've always made cookies, and then you learned how to make muffins, and then you learned how to make a cheesecake, and then you learned how to make sponge cake, leveling up. How can you now learn to decorate all of this? What is it that you want to level up? As most of you know, I love gardening. How can you level up? For me this year, I have set chives by seed. I've set parsley by seed. I've set basil by seed. Will they come up? I sure hope so. Is there any sign of them yet? No, not yet, but I sure hope so. And so challenge yourself. How are you going to level up? And please write in the comments down below. I really seriously am interested in what it is that you're doing to level up. That's important to me. It really, truly is. By now, when we get to the 22nd, now we've got Jupiter on the other side of Uranus. Now, Jupiter is still feeling that vibrational pull, guaranteed that vibrational pull from Uranus. We're not out of this situation yet. And this may not be a bad situation, people. Not at all. Then we move our way along. And of course, now we're moving into the vibration of the full moon. We will have that full moon within the next few days that we're talking about. There's the full moon right there. Directly across from the new moon. Directly across from the sun. And that takes us to the full moon. That full moon is a very strong moon. It takes us into that vibrational energy that is in Scorpio. That brings an intensity to that moon. That intensity of wanting to delve into things, wanting to look at things, wanting to study things, wanting to check out things. It creates a trine. We like trine. It creates a trine with our Saturn. And, looking into things. So I'd like to do this new class. Well, that's great. But if I do this new class, how much responsibility is that going to have me do? Step into that feeling side of that. And instead of looking at how much of a responsibility, step into the fact of, but when I get that certification in my hand, how am I going to feel? That's the vibration we need to look at. When we get to the 25th of April, now Mercury turns direct. Mercury, that planet of communication, and it turned right direct on the North Node. There is lots and lots of discussion here about full timing forward, full vibration forward, full sense of going forward. That's a lovely day for planning ahead. You can see that Jupiter is still, I'm on the 26th of April here. Jupiter is still kind of vibrationally being pulled with Uranus, but it's starting to move away. Lots of times, specifically students actually will often ask me, so, you see it coming up, so that's waxing, coming up to exactness, and then it's waning, which means it's moving away from exactness. Lots of times students will say, so when is the actual happening? And lots of times it has to do with the actual planets involved. Uranus and Mars are two of the major planets that lots of times when it gets to the exactness and then it moves away, lots of times it's the moving away is when the event happens. But other times it can be when there is like an exactness that takes place. We can see Chiron. I'm at the 28th of April. Chiron is still at 20 degrees. Chiron's still very strong, directly in that vibrational energy. It hasn't really moved out. But by now we've got Mars and Neptune sitting together. And Mars and Neptune, that's a bit of a harsh alignment because Mars is aggressive. Now, Mars can't be overly aggressive in Pisces because Pisces is the dreamer and the hippie and love and peace. And, so Mars can't do too much damage in Pisces. But lined up with Neptune, sometimes it can make us all sort of spin on absolutely trying to get these dreams to come into focus and be exactly as I want them to be. I've called this video Fireworks Are in the Air because mainly the Jupiter and Uranus coming together, but also Mars and Neptune coming together and Chiron being in the whole fray of all of this. Of course, by now, the moon is trying to make its way all the way around to create the next new moon. And, I'm going to go to May 1st here. Now, on May 1st, that's the day that Pluto is going to start to retrograde. Pluto hits a wall on May 1st, and as I talked about a little bit earlier, gives a little bit of a reprieve to a lot of the rest of us. Mars right now has moved into Aries. Ooh, Mars is very, 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 very strong in Aries. Mars rules Aries. Mars is also the god of war. So Mars is going to come in 2 weeks or so and get into that vibrational energy. So it will either create a big explosion that ends a war, or it may create a war. So we'll have to watch and see vibrationally how that works its way through and what other kind of aspects are going on in the chart at the same time. When we get to our next new moon is the 8th of May, and so I'll take us up to about that 8th of May. We also now, this is an interesting alignment on the 4th of May, as Saturn and the moon and Neptune, that's actually really a nice alignment there, because intuitively, Pisces is such an intuitive alignment. Intuitively, we are starting to find our actual way around. There is Mercury back into that exact 19 degrees. Remember what I said? Went through there in March, backed up. Now we see the 4th of May, it's going through there. Remember, I used the example of this person going off for pregnancy leave. So this is a finality of the conversation we've been kind of batting around since late March. By now, we're in what we refer to as the dark of the moon, because the new moon is on the 8th. So everything is kind of scrunched up. You know, there's nothing going through Gemini or Cancer or Leo or Virgo or Libra or Sag or Capricorn or Aquarius. I mean, there's asteroids and stuff going through. But the majority, if you look in your chart and see, again, you're looking on this outside rim here, you're seeing where Aries is, where Taurus is in your personal chart. The energy is so focused directly in the middle there. It feels vibrationally compacted. I've had a lot of people talk about being tired. And I think a lot of the tiredness is, especially if you had a lot of Aries and a lot of Taurus in your own personal chart, you are absolutely feeling this vibrational energy. By the time we get to the 6th of May, we are now very much awaiting this new moon. And by the time this is the 7th of May, by the time we get to the 8th, and a lot of that is going to depend on where exactly in the world that you live. It can be late night on the 7th or early morning. If you're on the West Coast, it's going to be early morning on the 8th. If you're Eastern or UK time, it's going to be on the 7th. You can see that Jupiter, Jupiter hasn't moved a whole lot from that Uranus. But Jupiter is still having a conversation with Black Moon Lilith. So we're still trying to fix up this egg on the face bit that happened a while ago. And then, of course, we get to the full moon. We get to the full moon at 18 degrees Taurus, where we get to the full moon. But, we still have Chiron and Mercury. So again, remember, it's about working on our wounding. The whole point of the evolutionary path in life is to work our way through it. If we get it this time around, as an evolutionary astrologer, if we get it this time around, if we work on it, if we get the lesson, we don't have to carry it into our new life. The next time we roll around, I usually say it's, leave here and it's heading to Toronto somewhere, going to another plane. So, try and identify what they actually are. Try and identify what it is that wounding is and how that wounding has helped you, have worked with you, have either kept you back or maybe have propelled you forward. Again, I say, maybe you already got the lesson. Maybe you've already been working a fair amount on that lesson. Only you know that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Maybe see you even on Facebook. All the best.